Now, the National Peace Committee is calling for calm and unity among the candidates and their supporters in the forthcoming Edo State governorship election. Led by former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, retired, the committee urges all political parties to commit to peaceful conduct, stressing the importance of a violence-free election. Now, the call comes amid growing tensions following the refusal of the PDP candidate to sign the peace accord, a move that has raised concerns about the potential for unrest. And joining me for more on this is Reverend Father Atta Barkindo, the Executive Director of the National Kuka Center and National Secretary of the National Peace Committee. Thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight.
Thank you very much, Adesua, for having me.
One can only imagine the sort of day you have had so far, but I wanted to ask you, how is the committee interpreting the move by the PDP and its candidate not to sign the accord this time around?
Thank you. The committee is not taking anything very personal. First of all, this is their own commitment and contribution to peace process nationally and even at the subnational level. So the members of the peace committee are very calm, they are very hopeful, and they know that democracy and the entire political process is a journey, it's not a destination. So we are really very calm and we are very hopeful. And we are hoping that at the end of the day, all the issues will be resolved and the wishes of the people of Edo State, will prevail. We had similar situation in 2020. But at the end of the day, a lot of people, understood the situation, the accords were signed, and then we followed up and the result was accepted and the Edo State, moved forward. So we are very hopeful and we are very calm.
Well, to be fair to you, the PDP, the party chairman, state chairman, did say that, it's a wonderful idea. It's a good job you do. They seem to have a problem with the security force, the police in particular. But that raises the question about the seriousness that political parties and their candidates put to this gesture of the National Peace Committee. We have seen in the past where candidates will sign this accord and yet on election day, it is brutal, it is violent, and you wonder, how serious really do they take this peace accord?
You have to look at this thing in an entire context. In 2011, after the general elections, about 800 Nigerians were killed in 3 days. And since then, significantly, we can see in 2015, in 2019, and in 2023, violence and conflict is not as widespread as some analysts have actually predicted. And in most cases for the National Peace Committee, people only see what we do as reported by the media. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of back and forth and a lot of private engagements and meetings that we conduct begging and pleading people. And we are doing it in a context where judicial processes are weak, institutions of accountability are weak, and what the National Peace Committee is providing is that moral intervention and that moral persuasion that is needed to ensure that if all other agencies of government and institutions are weak, at least we still have critical stakeholders that are alive and active and have the passion and the interest of this country at heart to still offer, a hand that will be helpful in terms of mediation. And so we understand that there's always pockets of violence. There are people who are complaining, and Nigeria is not perfect, and it is also a process. But you can imagine if at all the Peace Committee doesn't do anything. And I think that we must realize the little progress that has been made ultimately at the end of the day. In 2015, they predicted the complete integration of Nigeria. But when they signed the peace accord and the members of the peace committee intervened, I think Nigeria moved forward. The same in 2019, the same in 2023. So that's why in Edo State and hopefully other off-cycle elections, we are very hopeful that at the end of the day, things will be better. We just want the politicians to understand that the stability, the unity of Nigeria is far more important than any personal interest. And so if they can come together, put their acts together, and see how they can resolve these issues, I think it will be very important. For the members of the Peace Committee, they are accessible, they are available, they are willing to offer their support in order to stabilize and unite Nigeria to move forward.
Well, thank you for highlighting the job that you do and the outcome so far for a lot of us who might not have known that. But what do you say to those that say the peace accord lacks enforcement mechanisms? What do you say to people like that? And perhaps that's why the politicians just think it's a symbolic gesture. It starts and ends as a symbolic gesture.
That is what they see. I personally don't believe that it lacks the enforcement, gesture. For example, some of the peace accords we have signed in the past, during judicial processes, either in Osun State, for example, and in other states, they have requested for the draft of the accord to serve as piece of evidence in the court of law. And beyond the signing, the Secretariat of the Peace Committee constantly monitors, collects, and assesses data, and especially when we identify that there are very serious violations. Before the 2023 general elections, for example, when we signed the first peace accord in September 2022, and we, asked the politicians to commit themselves to have campaigns and rallies that are civil in nature, they are respectful, they are issue-based campaigns. And when we monitored and identified serious violations, we called the presidential candidates together and presented to them, the issues. And the police force was there, INEC was there for them to understand. And beyond that, the members of the National Peace Committee do not have constitutional powers to arrest people. They don't have constitutional powers to prosecute people. And that's why during the signing, you can see that the INEC chairman is the witness, the chief witness, including the Inspector General of Police. And some of the content of the accord itself, they are not very different from the laws and constitutions and electoral framework that we have. So if there are violations, already there are people constituted by law to identify, to arrest, to prosecute these people. As I say, what we are offering is that moral persuasion. So I think that the accord really has a content, the accord has an enforcement element to it, and it's left for those who are empowered by law to do their jobs.
Interesting. Father Barkindo, you've mentioned morality twice now in the course of this conversation. And I just wanted to ask you, because you have done this for such a long time, can you possibly say that we can use in the same sentence Nigerian politicians and morality? Is politics moral in Nigeria from what you have seen?
I mean, morality is relative. Politics is about negotiations. Politics is about conceding ground. Politics is about sitting down to agree. And you cannot, throughout politics, be completely territorial. You have to negotiate, you have to concede ground, you have to understand. It is not about bribery and corruption. And you have to understand the issue of morality in this country is not only limited to politics. Literally every institution in this country is suffering from moral deficit. And this is what we are struggling with. So the same people that will become politicians, even in 10, 20 years down the line, to what extent are they very moral, really, today? So I think that when you are talking about morality within the political class, it is very important to look at this thing within the context of entire Nigeria and to see that we cannot manufacture politicians. It is the country that will offer us the type of politicians that we have. So the kind of moral culture we have in this country, the kind of moral context that we have in this country, it is that same context that will produce the type of politicians that we are going to have. So I don't want to blame any politician. I think that all of us as a country must sit up morally so that we can have the type of politicians we want to have. We can have the type of pastors we want to have. We can have the type of police we want to have. That morality has to be across the board. We cannot isolate yourself and simply blame other people. Because the politicians we have today have their parents in this country. Some of them were born and raised and educated in Nigeria. So whatever knowledge and attitude and character and morality that they have today, it is the country that has provided them with that morality. And it is the same country that you either become a beneficiary or a victim of that sense of character or sense of morality. So for me, I will be a lot more contextual with the issue of morality.
Okay, let me ask you, when there are no consequences for actions, they're most likely to be repeated over and over again. With the Peace Committee not having any constitutional backing to enforce this accord that is signed every electoral cycle, do you think that there are conversations we need to have with penalizing those who undermine the democratic process that bring people to power, our electoral processes? Do you think that we have seen enough consequences for people's action? And does that not affect the work you do, although it is more symbolic for a lot of people because it doesn't have that backing of law, if you get my question?
I understand really your question, and it's not a question that has been raised today. It's a question that has been raised since 2014 when the National Peace Committee, came on board. So as to whether the Peace Committee should have constitutional backing or not, I think that's a conversation the members of the National Peace Committee, would like to undertake themselves. I don't think I'm in the position to do that right now, but it's a conversation that is worthy of having. But if you look at the example of Edo State and why we came to Edo State in the first place, most of the issues that were raised either by the People's Democratic Party or the All Progressive Congress is simply the issue of crime. A police officer, Mr. Onu Ako, was killed. The members of the National Peace Committee don't have to be there. These are issues that were very obvious. These are issues that, were very committed literally daybreak. So it's a blame game. PDP is saying no, is members of APC. APC members are saying no, is members. This one, you don't even need to have the National Peace Committee. People should just live up to their jobs. But as to whether the Peace Committee should have a constitutional backing or not, this is a conversation, absolutely for another day. My final point here is that we have enough laws in this country. We have enough agencies that have constitutional powers, that have backing by the law to do their job. The question is, are they actually doing their jobs? Are they doing their jobs? And if they are not doing their jobs, what is the reason? What is wrong? And how can we strengthen and consolidate and give them, that opportunity to better do their jobs? And I think for me, we have enough laws, we have enough agencies that have constitutional backing, that have legal backing, and we just have to encourage people to get up and to do their jobs.
And I think that you hit the nail right on the head for the question about who's dropping the ball, why are they dropping the ball, and can they live up to expectation? But before I let you go, Father Barkindo, let me ask you, with the tensions already high in Edo State ahead of this election and the PDP refusing to sign today, are you concerned, are you worried of the potential breakdown of law and order in the state ahead of this election? What are your concerns really?
Used to sign. I think that they give certain conditions, and that if those conditions are met, for example, they will be likely willing to sign and even come to Abuja to sign. So, for example, they claim that some of their members have been arrested and they want those members to be charged to court. And when we had meetings with security agencies, they promised to charge those people to court. So I think that probably if they are able to come together and resolve the issue, things will likely be better. But I'm not speaking just for the National Peace Committee. In my own personal opinion, and really what I've observed on ground, I'm a little bit worried for the security situation here in Edo State. But much more importantly, I really want to call on our politicians. Ordinary Nigerians should be able to benefit from the entire political process. We cannot have election after election, one election after the other, and the lives of the people remain the same, if not worse. And the situation, the general situation, continue to diminish among ordinary Nigerians. And I think for me, that is a bigger threat to the democratic system, rather than some of these crimes that are committed seated on the fringe. How do you attend to the needs of ordinary people when elections are over? Because if this anger and this bitterness and this anxiety and this uncertainty continue to accumulate over time, I think it's really going to be a problem. And it's time for Nigerians to really come together and, as Bishop Kuka would say, to hold the feet of government to fire. Because for me, this is really very important. I really worry for the ordinary Nigerian and what is happening to their quality of life in this country.
We all worry. Father Atta Barkindo, thank you so much. The Executive Director of the National Kuka Center and the National Secretary of the National Peace Committee, joining me there virtually from Benin City, the Edo State capital.